The Beef and Barnzy Show, brought to you by Bowlersmart.com, trusted by bowlers around the world since 2004. By Lightning Strikes Bowl, home of Bowlers Mart Pro Shop. By Platinum Ford, drive the difference. By Fire Lake Bowling Center, 24 state-of-the-art lanes. By True Grit Coatings, drive on our passion. By Road to Grip, king of them all. By 900 Global, striking worldwide.
Good morning and welcome back to the Beef and Barnzy Show. As usual, I am Barnzy, joined by the inimitable Stuart Williams. How are you today?
Yep, I'm good. The weather has taken a turn for the shit here in Texas.
That's the only thing we have here in Detroit, so welcome.
The update from Dom was that the weather wasn't actually bad where he was. It was just a little cold. It was very clear and sunny. And, quote, it's warm in the truck.
Yesterday was actually, I was shocked. I walked outside and it was 70. Of course, the humidity is 95%. And it then proceeded to act like it was Florida for the rest of the day and just rain every couple hours. So with the exception of the scenery, the amount of dirt and salt that it was washing away, it seemed a lot like Florida. I mean, by that, I mean, it's a good thing Goiky's centers all have wood approaches. So
yeah, we've had a bit of a challenge this week. Austin's very humid, and it's been a little challenging with with the approaches. I actually wore a sock.
Welcome, Brian.
Nice. I actually wore a sock. So we, as per usual, we are open to any questions. The Nationals thing is just kind of like a topical discussion. So if you're new to the show, feel free to ask anything. Super chats are appreciated, but not always necessary. We will get to you. If you ask a super chat, you are guaranteed to get an answer.
Very cool. Yeah.
Even if you don't like
it. There's some shows we get a ton of questions, and so people do get skipped, and we apologize for that, but we can only get to what we get to. But yes, and since Alex got in early, we'll get started. Hey guys, I want a ball that I can go to after the phase 2 to open the lane. Is the Fate a good choice?
Yes.
As of recent, I may be thinking that the Relevant is a really good choice as well. The Revenant.
I was about to say.
It's becoming irrelevant, so I'm just going to make it my own. It's my own reality strike. So,
okay. And then what's your version of the Emerald Ruby?
Oh, the Emerald Ruby. Well, that one's a little more confusing. That's Christmas all wrapped up into one right there.
Shit.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Old man out of breath, bowling too fast. Sometimes anything can
happen. Hey, Eugene. Morning, Derek. Thanks for coming. Come on, stop doing me short. It was 8:04.
I am poor.
Morning. All jokes aside, I bet dollars to donuts. She says the infinite physics. Well, I didn't so far.
No, it's a ball under the physics or the ball under the phase 2. So I'm not sure. China, it could be.
Hey, James, what's going on? What layout system do you use? And what are the difference between Storms and the dual angle system? We tend to use the Storm one because Storm asked us to use that one.
It's a little easier to eyeball too.
Yeah. I think that the dual angle is a little I'm trying to think of it. I think it's a little easier for people who understand both to picture with dual angle. Just because of the numbers and stuff with the degrees, I think it's a little easier for people to picture. I think it's way easier after the fact to put the layout on with Storm's VLS system. So yeah, we use Storm's one with our videos. I sometimes kind of tell you both because I have a pretty good idea of what the layouts are. Chris is more into Storm's /rat layout system. The rat list system is right about there.
Yeah. Pin above the middle finger, moving the CGs left and right and up and down. So go ahead and explain the Storm system because that is the system you're going to hear most often. And then.
Okay. So the Storm system, you, just 1 second. Somebody actually said it. Storm have an arc ruler. It's called, it looks just like a plastic, mat, like the steel ruler you have, but it's plastic and it's got holes in it every eighth of an inch. No, quarter of an inch, every quarter of an inch. And basically, the first measurement is the pin to pap, which is kind of normal. So let's say my favorite layout, it's a 5.5 inch pin. So you will draw an arc 5.5 inches from the pin. And then the next one is the mass bias or the PSA. So that you would draw. So I tend to use fairly strong. So I'd do a 4.5. So I'd take the Storm ruler and I go to 4.5 and I put the pin, I guess, like the marker pin into there, and I draw an arc that intersects with the pin to pap arc, and that's my first marking. So then it's a 5.5 by 4.5, and then I do the pin buffer, and pin buffer is how far your pin is from your VAL. I don't know if you heard that, but that's thunder and lightning here. So you draw another arc. So for me, 3-inch buffer. And then you basically take a line that goes from the intersection between the mass bias and the pin, and you draw a line straight up off the edge of the arc of the pin buffer. And then you measure back for your axis. And so that's how you lay it out.
Pin to PAP, mass bias to PAP.
And then pin buffer, which is pin distance from your VAL. So they're the three. The shorter the pin buffer, the higher the pin is going to be in general.
Yeah, if you have a 2-inch pin buffer, that's up. A 4 to 5-inch pin buffer is going to be
down. Unless, but key thing to remember is your PAP is also on your valve. So you can't have a 4.5-inch pin and a 5-inch buffer because the pin is 4.5 inches from your axis point.
Right.
So just bear that in mind when you're doing some of the layouts. So
the last number will never be bigger than the first number.
Yes. Morning, Adam. How we doing?
Appreciate you always being here for us.
Yeah.
W Bear. Have any experience or know anyone with a TFCC wrist injury? Somehow got it as a two-hander. Not sure if it's because of previous injuries or bad form.
I don't know what TFCC is.
You may have to explain that. I'm kind of assuming it's that little ligament right here, but I may be incorrect.
Triangular fibrocartilage complex.
That didn't clear it up for me.
No, I'm just reading what it is. So, yeah. Let me read a little bit about it so I can understand what it is, and then I might have had something similar.
My guess is probably that is more of a thumb-related injury, unless it's much different than what I'm thinking it is. However, Stu will bone up on it a little bit.
Oh, it says here you go. This small but plumb complex structure can tear easily as a result of sudden impact or twisting injury. So I would imagine that it's probably come from bad form, and like getting your hand over the top of the ball. Maybe actually coming back from the injury, try and build up a little bit with a lighter ball, and maybe that's going to give you a bit more of a foundation as to where you get your hand. Because obviously if the ball's falling off this side of your hand, that can cause a lot of strain. And although we're using the term two-hander, everybody bowls one-handed. It's just how soon their second hand comes off the ball.
And as that hand comes off, if the ball's over here, you are putting a ton of strain. If you pull down to the floor from your fingers from right here, you're putting a lot of strain on this side of your wrist. So if you're getting around it too early like that and then lifting up from there, you're putting a pretty good strain on with your thumb in or out.
Victor asks a quick question. Are you guys drilling more asymmetrical than symmetrical lately? It seems as though there is a good variety with different bigger balls and different bigger weight blocks. Yes, because my rev rate isn't high enough for the symmetrical balls a lot of the time. And for Chris, yes, because for a long time he didn't drill asymmetrical balls at all. So
thanks. Shout out to Alex Hoskins for cracking the code a little bit for me and letting me do it. But it's the same thing. There's friction in the front. And so we're kind of having to ball down in the front a lot. But there's still plenty of oil down lane. And that's where those bigger engines can come in very handy. And so, yeah. But Stu's answer's also mostly right.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. I mean,
you can't spell stud without Stu. There you go.
Goes without saying.
Adam says, if I were to bowl at nationals, which I'm not, which ball would you suggest you take with me? All right, Adam. Well, thanks. I would, if say we're taking 6 just because it's easy and it's the plane and it's Southwest. Yeah. I'm taking my spare ball, so I'm already down to 5 because I'm not going to. Nationals is pretty difficult in general, like usually lower scoring. You know, whichever pattern they put out, that your spare ball is going to be in play. It's the only ball that's in play on every pattern. So that's 1 down. Given the last few years and the fact that I'm likely to bowl the Bowler's Journal, I would think that the pitch black would probably be a good option. Especially it seems like it might be an option for the doubles and singles event at the start, especially if you struggle with controlling your direction of roll. Seems like that pattern's the more challenging one this year, and it's a little shorter by the information we're getting.
Yeah.
So that's 2 down. My strong ball, and the one that I think is the most versatile, is the Reality. I think that if you get there and you feel like you bowl team, I feel like it might be a good option to shine the Reality for singles and doubles. So that would be 3. I don't think that you can go wrong with a phase 2, and I think that that's a good option off it. So that would get me to 4. I would need a quicker ball. So that quicker ball for me would be the Revenant. For you, Adam, maybe if you're a little more speed dominant, you could consider a Fate. And then you would have 1 other ball left over. And from what I'm seeing, I think the IQ Ruby seems to be quite popular at nationals, especially on that singles and doubles pattern. So that's what I would take. That might leave me a little short if the lanes get really choppy, but it would depend who you were bowling with, you know, in your group. Because obviously, if your group's much higher rev rate, you know that you're going to break the lane down more. You're probably going to need some balls a little further down the bag. So hopefully that answers your question, Adam.
All right. Yeah, and mine would look. I'm actually just typing it across here.
I mean, Chris, if he doesn't say that he would take a gem, is either forgetting how much money he made with the gem the last few years at nationals.
Yeah, no, Jim would be there. As of late, we've had a turn of heart with the Absolute, and it has become a hate to love situation. Although I didn't really hate it, I just used it in a much different spot. I have now an Absolute, which I've broken the cover with a little bit, and it hooks miles.
So he's not hit with 360 is what he's saying.
No. I didn't turn it into a DCT. This one is an absolute heavy angular type ball, followed by a Zen. I like a Revenant or an X2 in that next spot with kind of a hustle. Stu's 100% right. The Bowler's Journal has been a urethane fest the last several years. For me, the tournament itself has not been. Even the years when they hit him, one of the pairs we caught down in the regular center at South Point wasn't. We just couldn't get it up the hill on the one lane. So it became a IQ Tour could also fit in that Revenant spot, or if you're a softer, a little bit more speed dominant, could fit in that last spot for that. But yeah, unless I bring more than 6, I probably will not have a urethane ball in there, or we'll be trying to get one out there for Bowler's Journal.
So here's the question that we get asked. Chris gets asked second most. The first most is always about putt. Chris is a 19-time titleist, was the best bowler of the year, best bowler of the world for the best part of 4 or 5 years. And he gets asked about putt, and he gets asked about the EPX.
Yeah.
People don't even ask you about times that you might have choked on TV. All they ask you about is putt and the EPX. I think it's great.
Yeah, well, people don't want to ask that personally. They would much rather from the safety of the computer for that stuff. But Stu knows the answer that I bought cases of them. That Stu knows better than that. I'm a throw them forever guy. But oozed, yeah, they're disgusting. I mean, I went to a different like pre-shot routine when I used that ball, because when it sat on my hand, so much oil came out where my hand was that I started carrying a towel on the opposite hand. For a while, I used a glove on the wrong hand to stop my hand from getting slimy.
I feel like the EPX was more of a living organism than a ball.
Yeah, I mean, for all the shade that the urethanes get about changing, I have to wonder if that ball had more issues than not. It may have been one of the best things to happen to bowling that ball didn't stay together, because I threw a couple of versions of the next ones. We were decades away from having enough oil to stop that thing from.
Well, no, we weren't. We weren't decades away, because we have no more oil now than we had then.
Well, yeah, it still would not stay on the lane. That's correct. Yeah, we would have been bowling on like 7 mils just to stop that ball.
Thoughts on the Sunstorm instead of the pitch black? The problem for me, Lonnie, is the Sunstorm. It's very conditional, and once the oil stretches down the lane, it gets you in a lot of trouble, which is what happened to me when I tried to use it at the US Open. It looked incredible on practice day, and then they were a bit tighter, and it was just out of play immediately. So, and that's how it was with that spec cover for me previously. If I did take a Sunstorm, I'd have to drill it really strong. Well, I'm glad we answered your question. Brian has another super chat coming in. Review my Arsenal for tournaments. DNA, IQ Tour, Phase 5, Hustle USA, Pitch Black. Am I missing anything? Yes. You have a gigantic gap between the DNA and your next ball. So I would consider in that gap the Infinite Physics, the Phase 2, TNT is another possibility, although I think that's a bit of a Marmite ball. You either love it or you hate it. Like that's where I would see it. You could even consider a Zen if you are kind of a lower rev rate, more up the back player.
Phase 5 fits in that spot, sort of.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking about balls that have a little bit of a stronger cover. The Zen cover is quite a bit stronger than the Phase 5.
Yeah.
So I would think that the ball you're missing is a Phase 2 to be above that IQ Tour, because the IQ Tour and the DNA are your two solid balls. Well, Hustle USA, but the Hustle USA is so far down the bag that
yeah, it's a fairly strong cover, but the core is
like
very
tiny.
weak. Yeah.
So that's where I think you're missing something, Brian. But yeah. Our friend Mr. Dombrowski says, He's thinking Reality, IQ Tour, Cosmos, Zen, DNA. Wow, they're the strongest balls I've ever seen for you. Where's your Tropical Breeze? Tropical
DNA
Surge.
shiny.
Ah.
The only concern for me would be obviously that there's not a super clean ball in there. I mean, the Zen's pretty clean, but it's still a pretty rolly cover.
Yeah.
But far be it for me to second guess him. He beats me every week. So,
no, not really. Yeah. There's literally no balls that are similar now to a ball that was released in 2000. Balls that were released in 2000 just go straight now. Well, yeah, David, you sent me this in a message. No, it's not really close to they're not really similar products at all. Like the Torrent, for me, is more like a Hype Solid, kind of an R2S cover, or something similar to that with a high RG weight block, symmetrical. The Absolute is not even close to that. So for me, that wouldn't be comparable. But no.
Interesting question here, and I think it has two different answers. In a 6-ball arsenal, to borrow a phrase, maybe it depends.
Yeah, I mean,
if your spare ball is really good, but in a situation, ideally urethane can roll, tip, whatever you say, considerably more than plastic does.
I think the problem for me is I'd end up with a urethane that didn't work very well because it'd have so much oil on it. And I'd have a spare ball in the urethane that wasn't as good. So I'd rather just not have the urethane at all and use it for spares.
Yeah.
But Frankie uses it for his spare ball, and then he has another one that he uses for strikes, and occasionally he uses the spare ball one. So I just don't want the ball to tip. I don't want to play that game. I just want it to go straight. Yeah. I want to be able to throw it bad and still make the spare.
Yeah, I mean, mixes are urethane, and I finally got away from them because on certain places they would just seem like on the 3-6-10 they would line up on the 3-pin and
it's like they do it just to be a bitch.
Yeah, like if you're on the 6-pin, then it keeps going straight, but if you're on the 3-pin, then it goes ahead and goes, oh, let me just chop this one right off.
I did for a long time use a red pearl hammer for a spare ball, and that thing was amazing because when I missed right, she always checked. When I missed left, she'd just lay like a rug. So
EVT patterns might have helped. So.
Oh no, I won my first title using it. And Crispin turned to West Pine and goes, why the fuck is he using a red pearl hammer? Because I was getting it. I wasn't on staff. It was like an incentive deal or whatever. Right. And Wes goes, he hasn't missed a spare all week. And Crispin just went, rock on.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. Thoughts on the new balls released? Electrify, BSY, Duo, Retro Spare. I think the Retro Spare looks really cool. I think the deal with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters, that's something that's very close to our friends at Fire Lake. I think that's a cool deal. Numbers wise, it looks like it's probably going to be pretty useful. It's something Chris has been crying out for. It's like an 040 diff, 45 diff. So something a little different. No idea what it's going to do. Haven't seen it. Haven't thrown it. Didn't even know it was coming out.
That electrifies?
Electrified. I mean, I just think we're changing color at that point. So I don't know.
Oh, you're talking about the Duo.
I was talking about the Duo, yeah. The Duo's got an 040.
It's still 247. It's just a little bit less diff than everything else. So. But hopefully it fits a spot that for us the TNT kind of missed that. Now since we started to see a few more of them, so it may be worth taking another try at, but yeah, and the good numbers, low RG, symmetrical, tend to roll pretty good with storm balls. Have for a long time.
Hey Glenn, Fate and Revenant over Zen. Zen Ball not as good. Yeah, I mean, like just for me, just in general, because I use like slower speeds, or I can use slower speed. I just find that the Zen is a little less useful for me on the broken down patterns. And once I start moving left, it's either amazing or it's like meh. Whereas with the Revenant, I feel like it's super clean and really angular now. So I can use my skill set to have that ball in play for longer. And the Fate has just been, like I say, for me, when they get tight down the lane, the Fate's just the ball.
Yeah.
Slightly stronger cover than the Revenant, but kind of higher RG. I can really kind of get around that carry down.
And per some suggestions from my friends, I've started going back to playing a little bit less down lane and more mid lane reaction, which is how I made a lot of bread and butter. So I'm moving more towards Zen and some of those balls that will stay online. Hustle USA has kind of made it back in the bag again a little bit. Some balls that they'll let me roll it and keep in front, and that Zen is pretty clean through the front and then rolls, but not as angular as the other two balls for sure, which Stu's fantastic at making those things go sideways. So.
Well, thanks, Brian. Really appreciate it. Thanks again, guys. Nothing is free. I tell my kids every day, keep it up. Well, we appreciate you. Thanks for the tip.
Much appreciated.
A lot. Here he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
Hey. Hi, guys. How you doing
today? Fire Lake Bowling Center owner, Mr. Skillings.
When's your Nationals date, Skillings?
Oh, look at this. Right? Look at this. I mean, top rope in you here. Because you
yeah, I know why he said it. I don't need you to say it again. I'm good. It's not unfair, but
well, he'd have lost by 2, not 1, if he'd have thrown his mix, because he'd have probably missed them all.
Jeez, yeah, I might have. No, I don't think it's shiny. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell from the picture.
Yeah, I believe it.
Oh, it is Reactor Gloss. You're right.
Reactor Gloss Pearl.
Yeah. Green Pearl. That'll be interesting. I don't know. Huh.
I throw a slight back up the 3-6-10, nail them every time. Well, if you were Norm, that would be a cutter.
Yeah.
And no, you don't nail them every time. Nobody does.
No. The tour average is somewhere in the 70s, actually.
Yeah. Last year, I was unbelievable at that spare. I think I missed it twice out of about 35. And Norm grabbed, I missed it once. And Norm grabbed my phone because he didn't believe me.
Yeah.
Not been that good this season on it. There you go. He says to pitch it. Somebody's jumping to your defense.
Yeah. No, I just looked it up again because it's actually in 15 is 249, which is not exactly screaming high, but it's higher than some of the assortment of phases and Zens and Helioses, so or Cosmoses, I mean, and Idols. That's what I mean. The Idol series. So I appreciate my mood. Thank you for having my back. But yeah, I deserve the shade on that one. That was a complete gag fest on my part. So I get a lot of credit for gagging sometimes when I'm not sure I deserve it. But that one, right about there. So that was a good one. Yeah, this is an old question. Because the surface is not identical, because the amount of play is not identical. And to be honest, every time Nick offsets them, a left-hander either leads or almost leads. So, and Detroit has plenty of bad pairs, which is the one thing that kept it from being a rout, honestly, because on the good pairs, they were awfully hard to beat. Belmo, for example, did not get beat by a right-hander either match.
David, I appreciate everything you bring to the show. I really do. But tell me your rev rate's under 350 without telling me your rev rate's under 350.
That also works very well when there's friction to the right.
Yeah.
That's
it's
not,
just those angles just don't make sense. Like I might be playing like the majority of the season I've been playing 23 to like 6.
Yeah.
Like
the
how's
tour
that
is
going to
such
work?
a different beast. Nobody throws shots right of 10. And so the only hook from it just your spare ball from 20 doesn't do that. And we play the track for about 3 minutes in practice is about it on that tour. So on the senior tour, that's probably adequate. I see Simon will do it every once in a while.
But the problem is, David, like, are you only playing in the same place every time?
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, if you're bowling on cheetah, that's not going to work because you're throwing it at the gutter. Your spare ball isn't going to pick up when you throw it at the gutter. So, I mean, there are patterns where that's going to work for sure, just not on a lot of them.
No.
He's not related to Scotty Barnes, the basketball player, either.
Yeah, or the linebacker for Green Bay.
Or Will Barnes, the bowler.
No, actually, ironically enough, who was also a shocker.
Sorry, that was childish.
Gem Phase 2, Eternity, IQ, Tour, Ruby, and then probably Revenant. That's
pretty solid.
Yeah, that covers a pretty good range of
especially if you've got a little more speed.
Yep.
Adam says he's looking forward to bowling the PTQ. Yeah, me and Chris are hoping to be there to cheer you on, Adam. You might want to leave an hour before just to be able to get to Bolero, North Brunswick. Carolia is not the best place to try and get to traffic-wise at any time.
No, and drilling balls off the truck is normally more a day before thing than a morning of thing. But you have to check on that.
Nationals in a month taking Reality, Helios, UC3, High Road, Pearl, Tropical Spare. Any gaps to fill? No, not so much. No, I think you got a pretty decent range there. Yeah, I think that's a fairly decent.
UC3 is not my favorite urethane ball, but
well, I just don't even really
consider urethane that much at nationals. Period.
I was about to say I don't even really consider it a urethane ball. I'd actually have it probably polished in this arsenal.
Yeah,
I just consider it to be like somewhat of a medium control ball.
Right, that's probably closer because it actually hooks miles. Plastic ball's the same. They all go a lot straighter than anything else.
The clear ones tend to it's a bit odd. When you first get a clear one, it goes like dart straight. But once they get tracked up a little bit, they tend to hook a little more than, say, the ice does. So the ice, I feel, is a little more consistent.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would say it, actually. I didn't know that you felt the same way.
Like, I've been really shocked because I track over the thumb, clip the middle finger when I throw my spare shots. So I usually go through plastic balls pretty rapidly. But the Belmo spare ball has managed to last the entire season so far, and I've bowled 225 games. I do have a tiny under-the-surface crack by the thumb, but that's usually by about the fourth shot. So the fact that it's lasted this long, I'm super excited. I'm hoping that it's going to last long enough for me to get into the Roto Grip spare ball. That would be good timing for me. If this could last the rest of the tour season, I could be done with it. Then I could get the Roto Grip spare ball, and I would also be able to mix in my Platinum Ford spare ball, which of course I can't use in PBA stuff. But being as the regional schedule seems to be, they seem to have looked at my personal diary and then arranged all of the events where I can't bowl. I probably don't need it for many regionals this year. The regional schedule is a little rough for us everything seems to clash.
Yeah.
It's a little unfortunate. We're going to miss our trip to Fire Lake, my favorite regional. So it's a little upset about that, especially as it pays 5,000 for first. But
I didn't see it on the schedule yet. Where's that slide in this year?
They had it on the 29th and 30th, but I think the PBA schedule tweaked a little bit and they didn't tweak with it. So we have to be in New Jersey to practice at 9 a.m. on Monday. It's a little difficult to bowl a tournament on Sunday in Shawnee, Oklahoma. So,
True that.
unless we had the private jet. DNA, Eternity Physics, Phase 2, IQ Ruby, empty slot, ice. Any ideas for the empty slot? Yeah. I think you could go in a few different directions. You could go with a High Road Pearl, a Revenant. You could go with a Hyped, whichever one you liked.
With the IQ Ruby already having a smaller core there, I think I would go with one of those little bit higher RG, or, a clean cover with a little more core, something that's higher response like that.
Burner Pearl might be another option that you could fit in there. Yeah, so that's just some options. Theo says, Chris Barnes, I believe in you. I just realized how good you are at bowling.
Well,
there you go.
I'm open to remember. So we've got that in common.
We are both on Team Spare Ball.
But the answer to that question is yes. Both.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, right, is you can aim to be as good in life at shooting spares as Norm Duke, or you can be the rest of the population, which don't want to have to throw the exact right shot with their spare ball. So if you use a plastic ball and you can miss with your hand a little bit and get away with it. If you use a reactive ball, you can't. Why wouldn't you want to have the miss?
Right. Any appearances on Dougie Vision? I have an interesting story about Dougie, actually. He was in Detroit last week and he was talking. I walked by and he asked if I wanted any action. And I didn't, all I heard him was saying something. He was around all his boys. And it's any action. I said, anything you want. And then all of a sudden it got quiet. And then he never found my end of the center to find to bet. So evidently not, because for a moment he mistook age for being scared of him.
He did start off very well. Shout out to Dougie. He bowled 11.05 his first block.
He did. He bowled good.
His last block, he didn't get to 700. He did have an issue with his finger, apparently. But yeah.
I didn't know that.
Brian, moving to Fort Wayne, Indiana. Good houses, you suggest. I don't know what the house is, but I know that Wes is really happy with where he's got his new pro shop. So if you were to reach out to Wes, the center that he's in, he's very happy with, is all I know. I don't know what that center is, but
they have a pretty new FEC there. So
yeah. So if you find Wes on Facebook, I think it's called Malot's Den or something like that, the pro shop now, because he's not Strike a lot anymore. There it is. Sorry, perfect. MVP Lanes, that's the one. Yes. Sorry, Mario. I actually saw this question earlier, but thanks for the super chat. I do appreciate you. Would ball layout to the pub for PBA tournaments give up any edge? Bowl TV don't provide this, by the way. You should both be on Bowl TV on a separate channel. Well, appreciate the shout out. We're bowling, so we can't be on Bowl TV on a separate channel. We do come in the booth every now and again. I think that the problem is they feel like the more information they give out, the more complicated it gets for the viewer. I'm not sure that's the real truth. I think it's too complicated for the announcer. And rather than getting mixed up with it, they just don't deal with it. I think that baseball is a game that's built around statistics and knowing the ins and outs, and that's what people like. I think that we should lean into it a little bit more. I wish we could flex our partnership with Lane Talk a little further. Yeah. And I want them to have, here are the best 10 spare shooters on tour. Here's the guy who's the best at shooting the 10 pin. Here's the guy who's the best at shooting the 3-6-10. Like trivia on the show. Like right. if you needed one PBA player to save your life, making the 3-6-9-10, who would it be? We'll tell you after the break. Like, I think that stuff is stuff that people would eat up. Right. Because I don't even really like baseball, but I think it's hilarious when they say this guy bats 375 in innings 6, 7, 8 in domes on a Thursday, or whatever the stupid stat is that they come up with. Like, you know, like against switch hitters, this pitch is great. Like, whatever. Like, I just think that that's a cool thing. Like, and I think that from the stats, they could actually come up with other things like, you know, who's the best 10th frame bowler?
Yeah.
Like they could do a bunch of this stuff. And I think that people would, I mean, I'd be interested in that. I know the other players on tour would find that fun. Like who gets the most pins in the 10th frame?
Yeah, we all think we know, but okay.
Well, last year,
in matches, you know, who is strike to win, who wins, who comes through the most, and what is that percentage? Because despite what we all think about, say, Pete Weber is, you know, the most clutch guy of all time, it's probably not 90% in that spot. It just seems like it for a while.
Yeah. You just go on runs.
Yeah.
And if your runs are public, like Tommy was amazing. So nobody mentions the fact that he missed the head pin to lose the TOC.
Yeah.
It just gets forgotten. It's just relative. Like
he's thrown some monster moments.
Yeah, people beat EJ up because he doesn't bowl very well on TV.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean during the week. Like I don't feel like, oh my god, EJ's not clutch. I'm definitely going to win this. Now he needs a strike in the 10th frame in match play. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
strikes out every time.
The goal is not necessarily just getting EJ to the 10th frame. That doesn't really feel like.
Yeah,
it doesn't feel like, oh, I got him now. I made him strike. Like
exactly.
Okay, cool. I got it close. Maybe I'll get lucky.
It's
yeah.
But anyway, that stuff. I think that's cool. I think there's an audience for it. And I hope, and I know that some of the challenges they have, like for example, I'm a problem because some weeks the PBA enter me in the system as Stu Williams. Some weeks the PBA enter me in the system as Stuart Williams. Some weeks he's Packy Hanrahan. Some weeks he's Patrick Hanrahan. Some weeks it's Tom Smallwood. Some weeks it's Thomas Smallwood. Like, etc.
The guy at the counter makes some, you know, putting in the names.
And it makes it way harder for them to, the data doesn't pull and go to all of the same people. So they have to manually go through and like move that up. So it's a lot of work. And when it's a lot of people, like Christopher Prather, Chris Prather, like there's a lot of guys who could be one or the other. Not everybody's Chris Barnes every week. Like, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. And Walters doesn't fit in the system half the time, so it's tricky. Hey, Cole, how's it going? Heard the latest thing. Get well soon. Keep fighting.
Thanks, Mike. If you have a question, hit us up, but we appreciate you. Thanks a lot. Adam. Proton Physics, Reality, Zen Master, Eternity for my 4-wheeler bag. And for my triple bag, a Zen, a TNT, if I can drill it on the truck, and a Fate. You're probably not going to be able to drill a ball unless you make it through, Adam. So just give you a heads up.
And there's a lot of strong balls in there.
Yeah. I think Adam's pretty speed dominant, though.
Do that.
But yeah, I would think that a TNT is probably a little stronger than you need. I think maybe the, you know, you've got the Zen Master, the Reality. I don't necessarily know that the TNT is the one you need. Maybe consider something a little weaker for if you need to get further left.
Infinite, Absolute, Revenant.
Yeah, there's quite a
Something
few
along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, their smoother pieces have worked pretty well. On the house shot, I think the guys who have been able to go faster and straighter tend to do quite well there.
Yeah,
So,
more angle, even on the PBA regional pattern, so they tend to cliff a little bit. And
I mean, for
straighter's been
the
greater.
two-handers, I mean, I think it depends which brand you're using, but like maybe a Hype Solid, something like that. There is a lot of friction there.
Yeah.
We got a couple more super chats come in. Frank, nice to see you, bro. Hopefully see you guys at Lorain, Ohio for the PBA Pro-Am. Not me. I'm not sure which one that is. Is that a regional?
I think it's a regional for in between maybe the World Series.
Oh, it's in May.
Oh, okay. That'll be tricky.
Pre-COVID, I was averaging 200 across 3 houses. Last 2 years, I've been down to 180. Went to Kegel in August, improved my swing from previous season with drills. What would you suggest to try and get back to where I was? 2 things. Do you have any video of when you were bowling before COVID? And, you know, because if you do and you can find something to compare, we would suggest that you send some video over to Mark Baker at Mark Baker Bowling, and Mark can maybe give you a little bit of a breakdown of, you know, what's changed. But alternatively, you can just take some video now, send it out to Mark, and see if Mark can give you some ideas on the best ways forward. This is a pretty open question. So if you have another question over something more specific, hit us up and we'll try to give you an answer. But yeah, it's a little difficult for what would you suggest to try to get better? Because there's
so many things that could be involved there. And
I would think that if your average has dropped from 200 to 180, that your spare shooting may have. There's 2 ways that your average goes down from those numbers. You either are struggling with spares or you're just not striking at all. So let us know. Mike.
Hang on, Larry Burble. So Fort Wayne also has one of their bigger, Dave Small, who's run 80 PBA events, has Pro Bowl West there in Fort Wayne. So you have a few choices in the area.
Mike.
TNT,
thanks for the chat before. Jam, TNT, Fate, Absolute, High Road Pulse Bow. Anything to add or replace? I think that the TNT is a little tough to have in that gap, because I think that that's a pretty big gap you've got between the Gem and the Absolute or the Fate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the TNT isn't necessarily as versatile as some other pieces. So I think that Gem to Absolute gap is one that's going to be used a lot. So I would consider trying to force in another ball in there. And if that meant that you had to leave the TNT behind, then so be it. And for us, that would be the Infinite or the Phase 2. Yeah.
Agreed. Something in that line. Even Eternity, even though it's a little smoother, but it's certainly cleaner than a Gem. And then maybe take a touch of polish off. But
Theo's your number 1 fan. 12 X's. Count how many X's are there. X's strikes for Chris Barnes and the Geico Shark Open. Good luck. Good job. Your man.
Let's see. We're going.
Oh, the embargo is broken. Yeah, I got myself in trouble. My bad. Belmo's like throwing $100 bills in the air. He's super excited that I broke that news.
Oh yeah,
Morning,
You
everyone.
didn't even tell me.
I'm looking to get some coaching too. What is some advice you would give to someone that is looking for a first-time coach? I would ask people in the area who are getting who are getting lessons, like, find out who does it and see if you can chat with a few different people who have got lessons from them. Like,
Yeah, generally speaking, the people who do the most lessons are probably the best at it.
yeah,
Because
but also I do feel like some people are kind of nichey. Like, some people are really good with lower average players. Some people are really good with ladies. Some people are really good with kids.
true.
Like, so if you're 6'5", and you throw it 20 miles an hour, and the person who's doing lessons, every person you speak to who likes them is a lady who throws it 13 miles an hour, that might not be the coach for you. I'm not saying they can't be versatile. I'm just saying that, if their most happy customers are all the people who are like small, low rev rate, low speed people, maybe you need a different person to help you out. So also, another idea is to go in the pro shop and ask them who gives lessons, because sometimes the pro shop does, but
Right.
sometimes some of the pro shop guys, especially if it's a big pro shop, they're like really busy. So they often have a few guys who are like, oh, we like this guy for giving lessons. Like, they kind of farm out their lessons. So a pro shop's always a good place to start looking for a coach. So
There you go. Logical Voice, a very consistent contributor here. We appreciate you. It seems like the DNA/Gem, Infinite, and Phase 2 are just the core of my arsenal right now. That's a really good start.
yeah,
Those three balls, and then
yeah. For me, it's reality or gem. Really, DNA is still
yeah,
hasn't quite.
no, we can't quite put our finger on it. Like, I see it one way, Stu sees it another way, which means we're probably
Both wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what's right, but the fact is we struggle with it at different times. Whereas the gem has just been a ball that, hey, when there's oil in the lane, that ball looks pretty good. Reality is, when there's oil in the front,
Yeah, I mean,
that
for
ball's pretty
me,
good.
I was about to say, for me, when I recommend the gem, it comes from the best place, because the gem isn't one I particularly enjoy using.
Yeah, it's just what the guys
But I
on
just
tour use
see,
a lot.
I see so much more success with it, like across the board. Then it's, to me, it's obvious that it's a really useful ball, a really great piece. So
Here's some useful feedback from Nationals. I overthought this year's national trip. The lanes were so playable last year. I assumed the shot would be much tougher. I brought stronger pieces and performed poorly. Stronger mean too early and they hooked too much. I'm assuming phase 2 was probably his best option. Phase 2's been awfully good for a long time. I mean, that's that medium control. It's kind of how I refer to it. Benchmark. It's a very predictable piece that's very versatile from lots of parts of the lane. So not surprised, and that's really a good place to build, your arsenal out from on both sides, with one or two earlier pieces and then a couple of pieces that are longer.
Oh, sorry, Mario. I did miss this. I'm sorry. Follow up. If you record the ball's serial number, ball layout could be recorded and provided to the public, and Bowl TV Fox would have you guys in between blocks. Yeah, I just think that, I think that that for a long time, Bowling has decided that the audience doesn't need to know that. I don't agree.
Yeah, when I first came on and was doing some TV work, they really, the producers didn't understand it, and so they wanted you to dumb everything down to the lowest common denominator. Well, and that was probably fine when there was 10 million people watching ABC back in the 80s, but our core is our core, and almost everybody that bowls has some working knowledge. And Rainey's very entertaining, but the tech specs is not what he likes to dive into.
And I also, on just quickly on Randy's defense, like the other week, they wanted to explain axis tilt, Now, I thought that this was a very odd place to start.
One of the most difficult things to address.
And something that is like almost impossible to see.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, we called it the wrong thing on tour for almost 10 years. We called axis rotation axis tilt for a long time. We didn't have the terms right at the highest level. So it's like I said, I don't really address tilt much because you can't see it. Rotation, you can see much easier. And yeah, it's for a long time they didn't allow him to, so it was never part of his shtick approach, whatever you want to say it. And so that led right into the entertainment side of things because that's what they asked for. Yeah, I'm not throwing shade at him. It's just not. That's just not what he really does. He let him do it when he was bowling on tour, and now that he's not bowling on tour, and now it's harder because he's just not seeing the balls every day.
Joel.
Infinite Eternity Phase 2 Revenant and Ice. I've got no issues with that. The Infinite and Eternity are slightly on top of each other, depending on surface.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would think
really Infinite Stole and Eternity Shiny.
Yeah, I would think. Sense. I was about to say, I was thinking if you were higher speed, I think you should look to add a gem or reality. I think they're both been pretty popular in the two-handed community. Ryan adores the reality. It's probably his favorite ball. It's his comfort blanket. He does have a ton of speed.
Yes.
Simo never leaves the house without the gem.
Yeah.
Belmo seems to be leaning towards the gem, even though I seem to see him have more success with the reality, which I think is a little strange. But Simo has kind of put the shiny reality on the bench this season. I asked him why, and he goes, "I don't know."
He's just a drill guy.
He goes, "I just throw it." He goes,
like a lot of the top guys, and it's just over there.
Yeah,
he started using the exotic in that spot now.
Sorry,
he's kind of started using the exotic in that spot now, and it shapes a touch more.
From what he told me, he thought that the exotic was the ball last week, and it hasn't been the ball any other week. Was pretty much what he told me last week. So he was very in on the exotic last week for the way the pattern played, but I don't think it's one that he necessarily is like must have.
Yeah, I like that arsenal though.
I might get an Eternity and an IQ Ruby to go along with my Zen to give me a few more Pearl options. Yeah, that makes more sense, Adam. I don't necessarily know you need the Eternity if you've got the Infinite.
Right.
But the IQ Ruby, I think it'd be a good option.
Yeah, it's a ball down off of that.
He says you get it in the shop. Yeah, I think the IQ Ruby would be a good option. Maybe just add the IQ Ruby to what you've got, and then at least you've got a weaker ball.
Yeah.
For if like you're struggling to get it through the front part of the game.
Love my Axiom Pearl. It's a little cleaner cover than the Zen and some of those. So perhaps this new duo might fit in that spot if you have enough time to wait for it to come out.
No, I think he's asking, is the Axiom Pearl a good ball for Nationals? And from our point of view, yes.
Yeah.
It's a low RG, fairly controllable ball that's a little cleaner than the solid balls. For me, I think that it's going to sound a little strange, but I think that the IQ Ruby might be one of the closer balls to the Axiom Pearl. Just drill it a little stronger.
RG wise is close. It doesn't flare as much, but you can drill it strong enough to make it flare, and it certainly hooks. Sheesh. That thing hooks a ton for a ball that. If you didn't tell me it was, 029, I would never believe it watching it go down the lane. So.
We got a new super chat coming in here from Andrew. First time. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew says, National Arsenal is the gem, the infinite physics, phase 2, the phase 5, the IQ Ruby, and the spare ball. I've been called to put this down to 3. Damn.
Why? Huh.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit more about how you bowl. Are you do you consider yourself faster speed, medium speed? Are you a higher or lower rev rate guy?
Because it's really at 3, it's spare ball and 2 others.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
if you struggle to get hook, then the gem probably has to be in the bag. If
yeah,
you struggle to get the ball down the lane, then you skew the other way. And if you're in the middle, you can probably do an infinite with one of the phases. But if you're rev
yeah.
dominant, I would go with like phase 2 and ruby. If you're speed dominant, I'd probably go with gem and
phase 5, maybe.
yeah, I'd probably do gem in phase 5 or gem and infinite physics and maybe not leave it quite so dull. But yeah, that's tough with 3 balls going in 2 different patterns.
Brian says infinite phase 2 and ruby are the 3 I used out there for both. That's good. That's kind of what we're hearing also. So makes sense. I've
Even
heard
last year, as much as I threw the gem, I don't know that you needed that much. This, like I said, it's a shape I like to see, and it controls the lane really well. Here's just a philosophical coaching thing: is it true that the feet chase the swing? There's basically 2 that the feet dictate the pace of your swing, and the other ones is that the swing dictates the pace of your feet, and ultimately they have to work together. Otherwise, you're not going to be very successful. And I think there's different people that key it up both ways. I think Stu and I tend to keep our swing planes on the same pace and change footwork a little bit to create speed that way.
Yeah, I mean, I might move the ball up and down a little bit, like,
Right.
but generally, when I want to throw it faster, I'm going to get my feet moving faster.
Yeah.
Just in general, I think the best person for changing speed is over the last 30 years has been Duke, and he does it by moving his feet faster or slower. So,
yeah.
I'm sure it's way more complicated than that because it seems like everything the Duke does is way more complicated than that. But I think it's 50-50 over whether it is more complicated than that or it's a sales pitch. So, as a high rev, medium speed thrower, what kind of balls would you recommend? High rev, medium speed. So for me, I would think that you would need smoother balls. I think the Hype Solid might be a pretty nice option.
I was going to say smaller cores, balls that don't flare quite as much.
Core is another one that might be pretty nice option in there. Also depends what else you have. For Nationals, Jim, thanks for the super chat. You've been a contributor for a while, so appreciate you. DNA, X3, Infinite Physics, Absolute, TNT, Cosmos, Ruby. Thoughts? By the way, I'm still ringing 10 pins and Surface wasn't the answer. Carrying Vegas was about 20.
It's a lot of pretty dull, smooth balls.
Yeah.
DNA, X3, and TNT, I would consider to be kind of in that same heavy control type area. I understand you probably desire, the struggle is to get balls to hook more than not, but yeah, depending on how drilling are, up, down, etc. And then a pretty giant, there's a lot of smooth in there. Smooth. Infinite Physics can be, it's controllable. Absolutely.
Very rounded.
Yeah, it's rounded. Absolute. TNT's rounded. Cosmos is rounded, and then the Ruby is small core. So you need some change of direction in there.
Yeah, I would think that like some balls, especially if you're still having this issue with the 10 pins, maybe you need to just go the other way and like lean into something like a fate.
Yeah, taller pins or some taller, weaker pins on some of those big balls that they save a little more energy for the back of the lane, but yeah, some stronger balls that want to change directions more, like you said, Revenant, Fate, those kind of things.
But thanks again. Yeah. Would a High Road Nano possibly work on an IQ Tour and a PBR? Yes. I mean, they're all pretty good control balls. I think the PBR and the IQ, unless you're taking a lot of balls, would be pretty similar for national. Yes.
He is. He's on a limited schedule due to some treatments, but yeah, he is in the booth. His staff is in the booth. They traded out Eric for Kenny McPartland is back in. He is big on personal affection, so if you can give him a hug and tell him I said to do it, and then Doug,
Kenny or Mark?
Kenny.
Okay.
He's a touch phobic. So you could pet him a little bit, tell him he's pretty. He's big on that.
Vinny has spoken about drilling eternity for me. Yeah, Adam, like I say, I think that's going to be a ball that doesn't necessarily round out your arsenal. It might be a ball that works really well for you, but I think it's going to be similar to kind of some of the balls you already have. So we like Revenant, Ruby, Fate. You've got the Fate. So Revenant or Ruby are two of the ones that we like the idea of. So
yeah, I agree, Keith. The players, yeah, I mean, each player's average on the spare, and maybe how it relates to tour average is the important piece. And I think some of these, having done some of this at Team USA, things like I had no idea the washout percentage was way closer to 50%. It just seems like it's higher than that, or should be. But we always struggled, at least on the GS. The Brunswick machines, the GSX machines, and all that. So,
Debug, thanks for being a first-time super chatter. I had about 6 boards of room down lane first game. You didn't, but your eyes tricked you into it. Like,
yeah, you had good ball reaction anyway. Yeah,
I was about to say 3 boards is a gargantuan amount of room. Like that's. Yeah,
it's 5 by 3 by 3.5 two-hander, 18 miles per hour, low 500s. Yeah, I mean you were creating a pretty good amount of shape for sure.
I was about to say, congratulations on being the exact thing that everybody's looking to be right now, which is 18 miles an hour and about 500 RPMs.
Yeah,
you've got the entry package.
Yes. Yes.
It's way harder to get that than it is to get accurate at doing that.
Yeah.
So, good luck with your bowling, my man.
I appreciate appreciate the advice to the rest too.
But yeah, that's kind of the realm that the people who are being successful on the PBA tour are falling into right now. So, like I say, good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a question I want to answer. I'm attending the Innovative Bowling Pro Shop School in a couple of weeks. What ball would you recommend for someone that has not thrown a Storm product since 2005?
Well, the ultimate safe play is just phase 2, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, I think that you can't go like the balls that I really like. I think Reality Gem. I like the Infinite Physics. I like the Phase 2. Absolute has been really good recently. So depends what you're really looking for. If you are a person who has been throwing a lot of Brunswick / motive balls, I would lean towards something that was more of a signature type of reaction from Storm, which would be something like an Absolute or a Revenant, something that's a little bit quicker. Fate again, to like kind of expand your arsenal. So that would be where I'm at. But shout out Hank Boomershine, Mickey Luongo, nearly always work that. I know I've spoken to a lot of people who have a really good time doing it. I think it's a really useful thing. And congratulations for signing up to improve your knowledge. I think it'll only be good for your customers. So
100%. 100%.
And if it isn't for customers and you were just doing it because, then I applaud that too, because the more knowledge that we get in the sport, the better. And there's a lot of smart guys in that room. So
speaking of Storm guys, Dave Sims announced his retirement, which, gosh, he's been with Storm since 95 or 6, I believe. And, man, he's been around there a long time, done a lot of very good things for the sport and for Storm. Shout out to him for getting out to the other side and getting to enjoy the finer things in life. So I wish him the best.
Yeah, he's always been super kind to me. I've really
Yes,
cool story about Dave. I remember he worked a trade show with me, and we were getting ready to pack up, and Dave's the president of the company, just to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And we would so of course I'm packing the stuff away, and I turn around and Dave's running around picking up all the trash that people have left, and he's absolutely hands-on. It wasn't I'm the president, I don't deal with shit like this. I was here to shake hands and put out fires. No, Dave was like, let's get this shit put away as fast as possible so we can go out and get a decent dinner before bedtime. So Dave's always been he's always been one of the guys, and super nice guy. I'm really gonna miss him on my trips up to Utah, because he's always got a good word for everybody, and I really appreciate him. Ken.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
We're at the same
says at the Masters, I believe that twister pins were used. They weren't. I think the last time twister pins were used was when Brett Wolf won the Masters. But we can answer the question: what differences are twisters to wood? PBA wood pins make a difference on TV versus tournaments. So these days there aren't really any PBA pins.
Right.
Now some places do put in new pins still as we go, and so when the new wood goes in, it is kind of useful to start with, because those kind of off hits, those bullshit strikes where the pins just roll around and touch each other, they don't happen. And that, in the ideal world, we'd always bowl on the new pins. Twister pins, I guess how would be the best way of describing it, Chris? They're almost harder, so they don't absorb as much, so they fly off more.
Yeah, I mean, you leave a lot more. The ball goes through them a lot easier. And so generally speaking, our strategy has been to use flatter angles with them, and speed really makes them move around. Oscu, Jesper just make a mockery of those pins. When we use them in the Weber Cup, those two guys at times will not even attempt to create angle. It's just to see how
fast. Yeah, I mean, back and forth. Oscar leaves a lot of blower sevens on those pins.
He does.
Me and Chris do pretty well. Dom also does pretty well on those, because I think you just got to, for me anyway, I kind of look at it kind of similarly to how I look at bowling a wood lane to a plastic lane. It's different. So I don't try to play it like it's the same. And I definitely don't 4-9 and go, that wouldn't have been a 4-9 on wood pins. Yeah, well, how about the last 3 strikes probably wouldn't have been strikes on new wood pins either.
Once you know that that's what happens, your miss goes to a different place. Super high flush is not the hit on twisters.
Mm-mm.
Even if you're a medium rev rate, that's just not the miss. Light is definitely the miss.
Yeah, late ball reaction, which puts the ball high in the pocket, is death on twisters.
Yeah, you are going to 9-pin at best.
Thanks, B. Thanks for the tip. Super sticker. Appreciate you.
Well, we are at an hour and 15 here.
Yeah.
And next week we will not have a show, as we will be bowling morning, evening, every day. Yes, exactly, Dusty. That's exactly how it's going to work. Balls I have undrilled that I could substitute for those I listed earlier include the Exotic Gem X2 Revenant Wrecker Hypercell Fused Idle Pearl. Wow.
Okay, so here we go. Now we're talking. Now we're in my range. I wouldn't worry about the exotic gem for now. The ones that I like out of this, I like the X2 a lot. I like the Revenant. I like the Wrecker. I think those three are the ones that are going to be. I think that the X2 and the Hypercell Fused are kind of interchangeable. Like for me overall. So you could probably drill the X2 or the Fused. And I think that the Revenant and the Wrecker, I think you should drill both and pick which one you like the best. So
yeah. So you also, just to go back, he had DNA, X3, Infinite Physics, Absolute, TNT, Cosmos, and Ruby. So one of the three between DNA, X3, and TNT, in my opinion, I have the DNA and Infinite Physics kind of on top of each other, but I like Infinite Physics better. So,
yeah, I think that the X3 and the Infinite are about the same overall amount of hook. I think that the X3 tends to be a little bit harder to control.
okay.
I know you haven't really used the X3 very much, have you?
It seemed pretty early to me, and so I had Reality and Gem already locked up in those spots for me.
Yeah, I just to me it is quite responsive for what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I would probably drill the Revenant and the Wrecker with similar sort of like kind of 5-inch pins, 3-inch buffers, and see which one you like. And maybe there'd be a big enough gap between the two that you could have both. But they were the two. And then with the X2 or the Fused, I would probably do something kind of standard, like 5 1/4 by 4.5 by 3, maybe.
And the Fused would fit underneath the Absolute and that.
Yeah. I would think the X2 and the Fused would fit underneath the
X2 for sure. That's probably the cleanest of the big.
The Fused is hybrid, but I mean, like now with it being so much older.
Yeah, I didn't throw that one. So
yeah, that was one of the ones that when Sean was on Ebonite staff, he was annoyed by, because when we went to the Fused, it was kind of over.
Didn't have a ball that matched up with that.
No. And when we used, I think the 3 balls that really pissed Sean off were the Phase 2, the Zen, and the Hypercell Fused. And by the time he came, the Fused had gone, and he was so pissed. Real quick, Bob. Yeah, we'd recommend the Infinite Physics just because we still don't really have a good grasp on what the DNA really does. Darren Tang's been using the DNA. He's been the one who I've seen use it the most. So maybe if you want to get a good idea of what that does, you could head over to Darren's channel. I'm sure he's got some chat about it. Casey, no problem, bro. He says, thanks for putting me on your guest list up in Indy. Chris, sorry, I got you that emerald just before the ruby came out. They're not really the same, so it's all good.
Yeah, the ruby's actually it's stronger than the emerald anyway. So it's they're both still around. The emerald's still traveling around with me, and I needed one because my other one was Ryan's, and it had plug, which I can't use on tour anymore. So both come in handy. Much appreciated. So
yeah, that's the plan. I made it last year. I mean, I made the match play. I beat Tackett, and then I managed to get super frustrated bowling against Christian Azcona because Christian hooked the whole lane at the 210 and spared it, I think, 4 times, and it drove me absolutely fucking demented. And I was like fried rice. And then the first shot on the friggin' show, he leaves the 210 and he throws straight at it and nails it. And Sean Ryan texts me and he goes, he just said, tell Stu that's for you, bitch. I was like, fuck you, Sean. He's like, Christian Azcona says, sup.
Yeah, I got you, bro. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well,
we'll have some updates, but it'll probably be a week from Tuesday when we have the next show. Hopefully it's because we are waiting for our TV appearances that evening.
Yeah, if we make it through, we may well do something the weekend after we finish the World Championships, because Dom is bowling the USA versus the world, so I'm not going to leave if I make it through. Hopefully, we've made it through to that top 12, and we have to wait around a week. We have to wait around 6 days to bowl 12 games, so that would be good. We've got a lot of practice sessions though, so there'll be no shortage of ball drilling if I make that top 12.
There you go. All right.
All right.
With that, once again, thanks for joining. Great talks today. Love the questions and appreciate the feedback. As always, you guys are the best guests in bowling. You bring as much as you ask, so we appreciate that. In between now and the next time, please support the sponsors that support us: Storm, Rotogrip, Niner Global, Coolwick, Bowler Smart, Fire Lake Bowling Center, Lightning Strikes, and Platinum Forward. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.
See you later. Thanks for showing up today.